Richard, Robbie, it's been a tough week. What say we sit down for a little peace offering? Here's a nice, cool, refreshing Budweiser. It's the king of beers, you know.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's Rowdy.com Big Three, where I talk NASCAR with my friend, Jerome Buzz Cutler.
Thanks, Bass. I like you, too.
That's terrific. You know, I like that shirt, circa 1975, Studio 54.
Dude, I'm rocking the pink. There's nothing wrong with that.
You know, speaking of rocking, it's been a little bit of a rocky week
Nice.
over there at Richard Petty Motorsports.
Nice segue.
Kasey Kahne released from the number 9 car, and I hope those guys, maybe the emotions have died down a little bit, and they've kind of made up a little at this point. I hope so, but this happened late yesterday.
Well, Kasey did just offer them a nice, cold, refreshing Budweiser, so maybe that's a good sign.
It is a good sign.
My theory on this is that these guys are all professionals, and while Robbie Loomis, Richard Petty, and the gang may not have liked the way Kasey handled himself at Charlotte, I'm not sure that this move is as much of a reaction to that as much as it is, look, this just makes sense. This is the reality. This is what is best for everybody involved.
Well, I think the interesting thing is we talked about this on Monday, and I said at the time I didn't think it would happen because I didn't think Budweiser would sign off on it. But clearly they have signed off on it. And the fact that they have signed off on it means that, yes, it is in everybody's best interest for Kasey to move on, especially if you could get Marcus Ambrose to come over and sit in the 9 car he'll be driving next year. But as of right now, that's not going to happen according to that team.
I think it will, and I think the reason Budweiser might have signed off on this is because they've already moved forward. They announced earlier this week the 29 paint scheme, the black Budweiser car for 2011. They got some nice coverage for that, so maybe they're like, well, we're already talking Kevin Harvick, so let Kasey do what he wants.
Could be. Now, you just said you thought Marcus would end up coming over to the car, and that has to be issue number 2. What other dominoes will fall?
Now, this is a developing story, so by the time you're seeing this, it may all have changed. But Lee Spencer came out with a report this morning stating that Richard Petty Motorsports may not continue to run past Martinsville, that Yates Racing and Roush Fenway Racing were not releasing engines and chassis
past Martinsville
to the team.
I assume they already have their Martinsville cars.
And that some Richard Petty crew members told Lee that they were told they may not have a job past Martinsville. Now we've heard from Jenna Fryer and Tom Jensen.
On Twitter, which is obviously, as this stuff is so in flux, these things come out on Twitter that are maybe not fully fleshed out, Cutler, but they've said the Talladega cars they've heard have been released to Richard Petty Motorsports.
So the bottom line, I think, and what we can take away from this is obviously there is some turmoil at Richard Petty Motorsports. Maybe Kasey was released for reasons other than Charlotte. Perhaps there are financial things at play, but you got to think about the fact that A.J. Allmendinger doesn't have a sponsor yet for next season. Marcus Ambrose does right now, I believe. But you got to think about those two guys, and so is Marcus going to come over to the 9 before the end of the season? Hell, at this point, we don't even know if there will be a 9.
Right, there might not be anything for him to come over too. We'll know more probably tomorrow, and we'll be at the racetrack tomorrow, and this will be a major topic of conversation, believe me, amongst everyone at the track, and we'll try to get to the bottom of it and get the word out to you on Rowdy.com as best we can. Now, maybe we should bring our video camera and go off-site if we have to.
If we have to. And I guess the other thing to say is while there is acrimony between the Gillette family and John Henry, who owns Roush Fenway Racing,
based on the purchase of the Liverpool Football Club over in England,
this probably doesn't have anything to do with that. Right? You're not going to withhold cars and engines because of a personal grudge.
Well, you can't.
You can't, based on contracts. So while that thought initially came to me, the more you think about it and look into it,
that is a situation that's been in the background. These two guys, partners over here and adversaries on the other side of the pond.
So what that does mean is perhaps there may not, and this is speculation,
less willingness to work
there may be less willingness to actually find compromise here.
Let's be clear. We don't have a lot of facts here, so we don't want to get too speculative and put a bunch of things out there that people have to deny. Not that the whole world is watching our little take on it.
But our buddy Bob Pockris has been working on this story since yesterday, so follow him. I'm sure
follow him on Twitter. Check out SceneDaily.com for breaking news, and we'll do our best to get that out to you via our Rowdy podcast and right here at Rowdy.com.
Now, issue number 3 has nothing to do with Richard Petty Motorsports, Kasey Kahne, or any of those cats.
It does not. All right, now, issue number 3, we had Jeff Gluck of SBNation.com, one of our longtime friends here on Rowdy, on our show, our Rowdy podcast today. And he was talking about an interview he did with Jeff Gordon where he asked Jeff, who is the driver out there that other drivers should not actually learn from? And he told me what Jeff Gordon had to say.
He just went off on Kevin Conway and was like, you know, I don't know what he's doing here. I don't know what his goals are, what his motivations are. You know, I think, you know, you'd really have to ask yourself whether you belong here. He should find a different career. I mean, he was like, I was almost cringing.
Now, Jeff Gordon is not the first guy to throw Kevin Conway under the bus to Jeff Gluck.
But Jimmy Johnson mentioned Kevin Conway, but what Jeff Gordon said was a lot more direct and it was harsh, let's be honest.
It makes you feel like maybe there's some bad blood there, like there's something between Jeff Gordon and Kevin Conway. I can't imagine what it would be.
Yeah, it does. That's what struck me.
I don't know, Doc. He's just a terrible driver, and it gets me so mad. Oh.
Well, Mr. Gordon, I must tell you, it seems like you have some pent-up hostility towards Mr. Conway.
He just sucks, Doc.
Do you ever have, perhaps, violent fantasies?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Die, Conway! Die, Conway! Die! Die, Conway! Die, Conway! Die! Die, Conway! Die! Die, Conway! Die! 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 Die, Conway! Die! I'd cut you, Conway! I'd kill you! Die! Die, Conway! Die! Die! Die!
And that has been your Rowdy.com Big Three for today. Join us at Rowdy.com. You can comment on this very video. You can check out our podcast and hear even more of that story. You can hear Denny Hamlin today on our podcast.
And Bass and I will be at Martinsville this weekend. If you're going to be at Martinsville, keep an eye out. Let us know where you're going to be. We'd love to hook up.
Absolutely. And if you follow us on Twitter, Buzz_Cutler, Bass_Masters, you can find out where we'll be on Sunday. We're going to have a big meetup there.
Yeah, and we'll be filing dispatches from the track.
Yes, we will. Until then, farewell.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.